Hello, my name is Aaron Lockwood here with the Lord's Catholic News, and today I have a very special guest. It's one of John Paul II's spokesperson, Timmy Tisher, and we're going to talk about the importance of genetic research. Hello, Timmy.
Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure.
Pleasure's all mine. So I guess to start, as an opening question, what is genetic research and what are some different types of it?
Well, genetic research is a very strange thing. It's when you study the human DNA to see what could be going on in diseases and some of the foods we eat and just many other reproduction systems and what goes on in the human body. And some of the genetic researches we'll be talking about today, we're going to be talking about GMFs, human cloning, and also gene therapy. But we're going to be talking about the two types of gene therapy. We're going to be talking about somatic cells, and we're also going to be talking about germline cells.
Next question. Does the church support GMOs and GMFs?
Well, that's an interesting question because it's gone both ways for a while, but right now the church doesn't support GMOs or GMFs, mainly because it's just taking away a lot of farmers' land and a lot of the livestock lives that are been going around in food and have been getting genetic research done on them. But a lot of people ask, why doesn't the church support it as much? Because it is helping end hunger and it is helping against poverty. And the reason is because we're not sure how accurate it is and how healthy it is. For that going around, it's kind of up in the air and a question of what's going on really, do we know, and how can we find ways to help feed 800 million plus people that are living undernourished, and how are we going to be able to do that without genetic research and doing it in a way we know exactly what's going on.
So you talked about the two gene therapies, somatic cell and germline. Can you just tell us what each one is and how is it done?
Well, somatic cell is actually the one that is more like the church is okay with and is allowed in the church, and that's it seeks to eliminate or reduce genetic defects in people, as if you're a child or you're a grown adult, that goes around. And the germline therapy is actually aimed at the sperm or the egg, and that's when they take the embryos of the sperm and the egg to try to take therapy and transmit the purpose of transmitting therapeutic effect of the offspring. So it's actually when you take a sperm and an egg, you put it in you could like mash it up, and that's how you can create a baby. But that's more frowned upon at the church because of everything going on with the news right now and just all of the different scientific methods.
So with gene therapy, usually they're looking at is it a therapeutic approach or is it an enhancement approach? Can you just expand on like which is better, or are they both okay, or which one's bad and good?
Well, the differences between gene therapy and gene enhancement is therapy is actually when you're going into the DNA and changing something on the DNA and in the human or any other object that has DNA. And that's more frowned upon with the church because it makes it feel like there's something about you that you want to change because you don't feel like you're good enough in that situation or in that perspective of your body. And that's why it's more frowned upon. But enhancement is when you're going into someone's DNA and actually improving it and making it better. So it's not really changing it, but it's mainly making it better in a perspective of your life and perspective in your DNA. So that is okay with the church and that's allowed.
So germline therapy also uses a method called in vitro fertilization. Can you just explain what that is and why it's like not accepted?
Well, in vitro fertilization is actually the part of the germline therapy where you're actually taking the egg out of the female and the sperm out of the male and putting it together and putting germline therapy and everything else you've used with the germline into that. And you put them in a petri dish and actually they start to go together and they start to mold together, and that's when they start to form an embryo. And when the embryo forms, they start to put it into a woman, and that helps a woman get pregnant. But something else about in vitro therapy is sometimes they take out more than they need to from either the male or the female because they can freeze it, because if it doesn't work the first time, they always have a backup plan that they've frozen and they could use again if they need to. So that's very interesting.
So cloning's been the new craze in recent years of the cloning of animals and people. So can you just like expand on like what cloning is exactly, and does the church accept it or not?
Well, cloning's been very big lately. And cloning is actually a type of sexual reproduction of a human, and it's to make another copy of a person, I guess you could say. And it's actually prohibited in most nations. A lot of the great nations of the world have prohibited cloning because it's just an unethical thing. Like it affects the ethical techniques are very negative. So it's very frowned upon, and it's actually been called a form of biological slavery because it's taking away, giving birth when a married couple has a child, they are leaving it up to God to decide what gender it is. But if you start to clone a child or a human in general, you're almost taking away some of the chance and closeness that could be to Jesus and God because of knowing what gender they're going to be right away and not leaving it up to fate. So that is very frowned upon in the church and in nations across the world.
So does gene therapy violate justice and charity?
It actually does. Seeking enhancements violates both principles of justice and charity. And justice is mainly violated because equality of all humans could be compromised. Some people might have the money to go get gene therapy and be able to be enhanced or get therapy, and some may not be able to. So it's unfair in that way, and it's violating the justice of just going against God and God's will and everything with that. And it also violates charity because it's seeking to modify oneself. And modifying oneself is a level of disgust because it's a rejection of the true human creation from God. And it is just frowned upon because it's going against God's will and going against what He made you to be and who He made you to be.
Final question: do you think any of these genetic modifications or research will ever be accepted in the future?
Well, all three of them are on different levels. The GMOs and GMFs are probably the closest to being accepted in the church. The germline therapy is probably second closest, and human cloning is probably the farthest away. And the reason for all of those is because when you look at the GMOs and GMFs, they are helping do what the church wants to do and helping with poverty and hunger across the world. But you also don't know what's going on with what they're putting in our foods and what's really happening in the backside of what's going on. And germline therapy is second closest because, well, the consequences. The consequences could be really good. They could be positive consequences, or they could be negative consequences. And negative consequences, they could be anything going wrong in the germline therapy could mess up someone's life or have them have trouble for the rest of their life with their body and their DNA and their just genes in general. But human cloning is just a different monster. Human cloning, it's not really frowned upon because of the research going into it. It's because of the moral dilemma. Because it's just such a strange thing to be able to clone someone to make a copy of someone that I don't think the church will be able to allow that or accept that in a long time, if ever, because of that situation.
Well, thank you, Timmy, for coming in and talking on Laura's Catholic News. It was a pleasure talking
Thank
to
you
you.
for having me. It was a really good experience. And I'm glad I was helping to get the word out.
Yeah, thank you. And this is Laura's Catholic News signing off.
Thank you.